You're listening to the Rent Roll Radio Show with Sterling Chapman. Hey, Rent Roll Radio listeners, welcome back to the show. This is your host, Sterling Chapman. Today, we are joined by Kevin Brenner, who is the co-founder and director of investor relations at ADPI, Active Duty Passive Income Capital. So we have had plenty of guests from the Active Duty Passive Income community. And Kevin was referred to me by Eric Upchurch, who's a good friend. And so I'm super excited to have him on board and cover some new information that we've never talked about on this podcast. It is like an alternative way for investors to get in. So great content today. Really looking forward to it. Kevin, welcome to the show. And thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks, Sterling. Let me just apologize in advance. I woke up with this little frog in my throat, and hopefully it doesn't get the better of me during this interview. But yeah, man, thanks for bringing me on. And I've kind of been making the circuit, if you will, to kind of share this information just about a different way to do things and a different way. We're recording this now in middle of June, and the market is just going haywire. And you would not believe, I'm sure you're getting calls all the time from your network and folks. People are freaking out. Yeah. They are like, their hair is melting off the top of their head right now.
while I was waiting for you to join the call, I was reading a note from Jay Scott. I always like Jay's
Jay's awesome
outlook, and it was talking about how much people are freaking out when you look at the relationship between like the actual interest rates and like the Fed rate, or like the actual 10-year treasury and the 30-year, and like historically what the spread has been and what the spread is now. Like realistically, we're raising rates 3x to what the Fed's raising it. So a lot of it is just absolute market mayhem.
Yeah. And it's the uncertainty, and it's that time when people, I don't want to even say investors, just like normal people, they realize they're like, holy crap, I have no control over this. I have little to no diversity. Yeah. And I was talking to a guy yesterday. He's like, in the last 2 weeks, I've lost $1 million in my portfolio. And I was just like, wow, and now luckily he's got rentals and he's got other things, but he's just talking about stocks, right? But I mean, you think about that and you're like,
his crypto is probably not doing much better.
Probably not. But the other end is, what do they say when now's the time to buy and do all that stuff? You buy the dip and all of that, but
blood is in the streets.
Your blood in the streets, that's fine if you're a swing trader and you're a pro and you get it. But for the everyday person, they're like, they rely on a wealth manager or someone, or they're doing it themselves. And they're just like, whoa, this is not cool. What do I do? And then of course there's all the media freaking out about inflation and gas prices and all of this stuff. And, the whole thing. So I wanted to come on here and show people that there is another way to get into the assets that you and I talk about. And a lot of other of your guests talk about in the commercial real estate world. And, it's not, I wouldn't want to say it's a revolution or like a brand new kind of thing, but it really took off in 2018. So in terms of like strategies, it's relatively new.
Before we dive into Reg A, which I'm super excited to do because I don't know anything about it. So as much as our listeners are looking to learn, I'm stoked to educate myself on the topic. Tell us a little bit about you. What's your backstory? Where'd you come from?
Yeah. So it, if I can get through it without coughing here. So I started real estate. So I was active duty, active duty Air Force. I was a meteorologist in the Air Force. So, marine and atmospheric science degree, University of Miami, literally nothing to do with finance or real estate. So I was in Savannah, Georgia, and stationed there, and I was playing volleyball with a buddy of mine. And we were like on a team, we just beach volleyball thing and trying to imitate our best Top Gun montage.
That's exactly what I was
I know. I just saw the movie. The new one, and they didn't have it. They had some weird ass like football thing that was not that was the one thing that bummed me out about that. Besides the point. Anyway, so we're playing. And this dude's a first lieutenant, and I'm a captain at the time. So for non-military folks, I make more money than him, right? I'm one rank higher than him. I make more money than him. And he told me, he's like, hey, I just closed on my 7th house in Savannah. And I was like, nah, that's not right, because I pay rent. And I was like, I have a car payment and I pay month. Like, that's not how you do things. I make more money than you. That's impossible. And he's like, no, it's fine. It's good debt. And he started explaining cash flow and rent to me and how the tenants would pay everything down. And my mind was just blown. So of course he reached into his truck. He threw me Rich Dad, Poor Dad, this like crumpled up version that he had, was missing like the cover and stuff. He's like, read this, and if you want to talk, we'll talk. And of course I read it in like, what seemed like probably 48 hours or something, just like couldn't put it down. One of those things. And then I go and meet him at the bar and oh, by the way, we're meeting his realtor, who's another West Point guy. And because he went to West Point, and we're meeting some other investors. It was kind of like a little meetup. He invited me to, and we're just talking. And I spent probably 5-6 hours there just absorbing real estate. And from there, I was off to the races, reading every book, listening to every podcast, listening to Brandon Turner on Bigger Pockets on my drive down to Fort Stewart, 45-minute commute each way. And so I just decided to dive right in, bought a quadplex, used my VA loan to get a quadplex, and then rehab that thing. And then 6 months later, even less than 6 months later, I bought another quadplex right up the street. And, within about 7 months, I had 8 units. We were in the process of rehabbing them. I get orders to come to Washington, D.C., where I'm still at now, to work at the Pentagon. And so I became this long distance real estate investor. But it's gone beautifully there because we've doubled the rents. Those 2 properties have appreciated by $350,000 each. They've doubled their value essentially, and the rents is really strong and all of that. And in that process, I was trying to grow, and I found active duty passive income. This community at the time was like 1,200 members in their Facebook group, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, how can I share value? Like, this is cool. Like, these are my people. And it's just started doing a 30-day live video challenge, like every day, just dropping value nuggets, everything that I've learned. And at the time I had just one quadplex. I had the other one under contract, but I had learned enough that I thought I could share to new people. And long story short, after 3 months of just adding like literally daily value to this Facebook group in posts and live videos, CEO Mark-Jan Sitch calls me. He's like, hey man, you just want to work with us? Like, like you're really like, you are exactly what we're looking for. And from there, I started taking over the podcast and reorganizing that. We set up a single family education funnel, like a big program there. So we're teaching people, and now I'm the director of that program. But what I really wanted to do, and I knew at the time, the most lucrative, in my opinion, the most lucrative place to be in real estate is to be a fund manager, is to be a connector, right? Whether that's, sure, and technically syndicators kind of fall in that, but you're connecting investors with opportunities, right? And I wanted to be that middleman because my father's an entrepreneur his whole life. He always used to tell me, he still tells me, he's like, the most lucrative position you can ever find yourself in business is to be in the middle. You want to be in the middle. It's the least amount of work with the most profit margins. And I was like, okay, how can I do that in real estate? And I landed on fund manager, and I started my own private equity firm and learned a lot of lessons. We got some deals under our belt, and that partnership ended up dissolving. But I took all of those lessons, took them to folks like Tim Kelly and Eric Upchurch and Mark-Jan Sitch and others, and said, hey, we've since nurtured this community. We now have 55,000 real estate investors, military real estate investors. We're the largest military real estate investor community out there. Why are we not offering a solution that can help these folks invest into real estate? Because there were so many barriers. I mean, sure. This, like, it's like, someone wants to invest with us in real estate. At the time, all we could do is tell them, well, yeah, we can teach you. We can show you the light. We can say, hey, here's how you do everything. And here's all resources and go forth and prosper. Right. But if they want to invest with us, the deals that we're doing, the self-storage units that Eric is crushing, the mobile home parks that Tim is crushing, the multifamily stuff that Adam Labar has, like, if you want to invest alongside us, we didn't have anything for them. The one thing we did have for them was this traditional syndication, your 506B. And it was, it's like $50,000 minimum. So folks were like, yeah, I can't do that. Like, I don't have that kind of money. So, we kind of went back to the drawing board on the solution side, and we landed on, a Reg A tier 2. And it's been absolutely life-changing since then. But it's just, like I said, a different way to do things.
Sure. So can you break that down for our listeners exactly what Regulation A Tier 2 is?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the listeners who are more familiar with, syndications and all of this stuff, that what you're doing is you are structuring a business to raise capital. And when you rely on these exemptions, it gets you out of a lot of the registration requirements with the SEC. So most syndicators out there, or general partners, they will go and use Regulation D. Regulation D is great because it's a big exemption that gets you out of a lot of the red tape. The 30s and 40s Acts. You still have to, there's rules that you have to follow, but it's like way less rules. And then there's, of course, 506B and 506C, and those are the most common ways. Now, the Reg A, you're actually filing, you are registering with the SEC. So it's different. It's considered a mini initial public offering. So for folks that don't know, when a company goes public, it takes a long time. Sometimes it takes years to get all the paperwork in order, to get all the financial audits. It just takes a long time. And when you do that, you're subject to a lot of oversight, which is the SEC's job, right? And, FINRA and SIPC as well. So those regulatory bodies, they want to make sure that you're everything's on the up and up. In a Reg A, it's kind of like a mini initial public offering. And it's not the full Monty of regulation, but the SEC has, there's a lot tighter rules. The cool part about it from the capital raiser standpoint is, while you have to file and there's some more red tape and it's more expensive to set up, you can raise from non-accredited investors. You can have minimums as low as $10, right? Minimum investments as low as $10. You can raise from, effectively, if you're using a transfer agent, you can raise from as many investors as you want. You're not capped at 99, like you are in a Reg D, in most Reg Ds anyway. You have a lot more freedom to set it up because you can market it to whoever you want. Just like you can on a 506C, you don't have to have the pre-existing substantive relationship with the investor. So for people or groups, I guess, like us who have nurtured and grown this community, we finally had that solution where we can say, oh, well, let's remove all those barriers that were standing in your way. Let's remove the $50,000 minimum. Let's remove the accreditation. Oh, you got to be accredited to get into this deal. And then on top of that, we looked at the fee structures and we just took all the fees out. We said, no, we're not doing any fees. Like, that's not what this is about. We're not going to fee you to death. This is about getting you started as an LP and helping you create passive income with real estate. And then, of course, we drastically lowered the minimum. We didn't do $10. We did $500, because from an investor relations standpoint, that's a lot. But, we figure everyone in our community, if they want to get involved, they probably have $500. And, it's great. It's a great way to make it happen. And from there, you're raising the capital in advance. So we're pooling the capital, and then we're choosing the best deals to invest into that get put on our plate. So you get to, from the sponsor side of it, you get to be a little bit more choosy, but you also have more leverage in the negotiations of the deal, because the people you're working with, whether we're going after the deals ourselves or we're co-investing with one of our student sponsors, which we have a full pipeline of, then we can say, like, or they can say, like, hey, we're private equity backed. We're PE backed. We have the money. We're not raising the money. The money's here. I'll write you a check right now. And from a seller's perspective, you become much more attractive on the acquisition side, which means, you can get better deals. You can close quicker, all of those benefits. So, And then, of course, on the investor side, you're able to get more diversification. You're not just, obviously your Reg Ds, those traditional syndications, they're single deals, right? So if, whoever you invest in, and God forbid their deal goes to hell, you're kind of screwed. In a fund like we have set up that's diversified, you can, all the deals in all the different markets with all the different operators would have to go terribly, to be bad. And it's just, you're hedging risk that way.
So how are you compensated? Like, how does that, you said you took the fees out. So how does that work?
Yeah. So no, that's a great question. So what we have set up is traditional, what you would see in a regular syndication, right? 70-30 split. So we, the investor getting the 70% and the GP, AKA us, getting the 30%. So anything that comes back, we opted out of like the preferred return and all the confusing hurdles and waterfalls and this, that, and the other, and all that stuff, because we knew who our client was. Our client is they're obviously in our community and they're military. They understand some real estate, but most of our clients, this is their first time investing as an LP. And we wanted to make it as simple as humanly possible. So we just said, hey, everything that comes back to the fund in form of cash flow, equity, disposition, sale, like the whole thing, sale or refi, like the whole thing, the 70-30 split. You're going to get your quarterly, you're going to get your quarterly returns. And, of course, like in any real estate, you're going to get your big check when you go through disposition. But by doing that 70-30 split, and when you put that model across a bunch of different assets, like a mobile home park and a B-class multifamily and, a self-storage that all have different timelines and cash flow kind of, projections, it pans out. It's a pretty good average. So, you're getting the best of both worlds there.
So what do returns typically look like for these limited partners?
Yeah. I mean, right now we're obviously, like most folks out there, we're big believers in under promising and over delivering. Right. So we're telling people 12% total return. So, and when we ran the numbers, obviously when we underwrite the deals, every deal that we look at has a minimum 8% cash on cash return. So, from day one, we're not taking, and again, being a part of the fund allows us, pretty much that purchasing power, kind of like that negotiation to go and say, we're going to cherry pick the best deal with the best sponsor. And we also have a stipulation in every one of our deals, because we have, part of being a fund is when you co-invest in this model, you have to have 51% ownership of each deal. So you have to have majority ownership, not 51. You have to have majority ownership so that if it does go bad, we have the systems and experience and processes in place to go and turn it around. And we have those provisions in each one of our agreements with our co-sponsors. So, that's pretty much how it works.
Awesome. So how's it been going?
It's going great. We're so in the world of capital raising. I had a mentor once tell me, and he said, he's like, hey man, and this is when I was running my other firm. I was freaking out because I was like, we had all these systems in place and the money was coming in, but just very, very slowly. And he's like, it took me, and he was speaking about himself, it took me 2 years to raise my first $1 million. Just takes a long time, and I was just impatient. I was just like, oh yeah, this is going to work. Money's just going to flow in. It's going to come off the money tree. It's going to be great. So I had these expectations in, and I was trying to measure the ADPI team's expectations, and they were on the other end of the spectrum. Like they were telling me like, no, it's going to be fine. We got this different. We got this community, and we've nurtured this community, and they understand us, and they're, they know that. And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. I think it's going to take a while. We are in right now, as we record this, we're still in test the waters, which means that it's the time period while the SEC is essentially reviewing your paperwork, and it takes a couple weeks, so we're turning in our second round of comments, and then they have 10 days to look at it to let us know, and eventually we'll be qualified. We're expecting to be qualified in very early Q3, and once we're qualified, then that means we can actually raise capital. But during test the waters, you can have people do soft commitments. Well, we have soft commitments of over $2 million right now, and understand from a capital raising standpoint, yeah, you might get 50% of that, because that's just how people work. But it's been incredible. The more we talk about this and the more that we bring it together, I get phone calls and emails almost weekly of people saying like, hey, I didn't really know much about this. And I initially I soft committed 500, but can I make that 50,000? Can I make that 25,000? Can I do? And I was like, yeah, it's just wild, man.
How many investors is that 2 million across? Like, what is your typical investor coming in at?
Yeah. So that's split across, I'd have to check, but it's probably around like 240 investors. So when you look at the numbers, it shakes out to about 7,500 ish per investor, like an average investment. Some people are, the high end, they're putting in 150K. And of course, the low end, they're putting in the minimum of 500. But you never really know until we get qualified and we start converting folks and bringing them into the fold because they're, like I said, they're constantly, as we get closer and we publicize that we're getting closer, there's constantly people like, oh snap, I want to get into this more. And honestly, like we were talking about early, Sterling, I think the market is sparking a lot of this because I think people are like, they're like, oh man, I don't have control. And maybe I should put something somewhere that's a little bit more tangible. So,
yeah, for sure. So my other question is about funds in general. So when I do a syndication, right, we find a property and we raise capital. Hey, we're going to take your money. We're going to buy this property. We're going to renovate it. We're going to refi, give you a bunch of your money back. We're going to keep giving you cash flow payments. And then we sell, then we're going to give you, another 100+%. So it's like a pretty clear timeline of like what path your specific money is taking, right? With a fund, and you're invested in all these different deals that have all these different time schedules. Like if Sterling invests $1,000 today, and we're at all these different, like how does that work? How do we track Sterling's funds throughout these different projects, and when does Sterling get what payments based off of different dispositioning of assets at different times?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. So when you work with these diversified funds, the number one thing that you want to develop before you send anyone a nickel is trust and communication. You want to make sure that, understand that you're still a limited partner. I mean, you're giving up your voting rights. You're not going to be telling people where to put the playground and where to put the, that's not your role, right? But you want to be able to, I always tell people in this world, the common denominator is not money. You have money, everyone else has money, they don't have money, they want more money. It doesn't matter. It's trust. You have to develop trust. And being able to talk to and have those conversations with the team is super important to know exactly what's going on and to get updates. But effectively, because each project has a different, like you said, a different time horizon, what that means is since you own shares of the fund based pro rata on how much you invest, right? So, if it's going that example, $1,000, right? You put $1,000 into the fund, Sterling. Well, each share is $100. So you got 10 shares. So your shares, you got 10 shares of the pie, and throughout the life cycle of the fund, which is slated for 5 to 7 years, say you get an asset and it's a mobile home park or something, and you end up, it's a 3-year thing. Like you get out of it in 3 years. Well, yeah, you're going to be getting the cash flow, but once you get out, you're not going to be getting cash flow from that. You're not going to get a disposition check from that. You might get like, based on your investment, you just might get like a bigger-ish check. It's not all going to come at the same time, but you'll know where that's coming from just based on the communication that you have with the partners.
Okay. So there is a, you said a 3 to 5 or 5 to 7 years.
5 to 7. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the ultimately everybody, gets the big payout at the end of the fund. So there is a predefined, I guess in my head, I'm thinking of like an ongoing fund,
mm-hmm.
like you know what I mean? And it's like, well, how do you divvy that?
Well, so yeah, they have those. So that's called an open fund. Yeah. Ours is capped. So this first one is capped at 10 million. When we hit 10 million, doors are closed.
So with an open fund, you can invest and pull your money out anytime you want, or
from the investor standpoint?
Yeah, from a limited partner perspective.
Well, it's still going to be difficult, remember, because I mean, you can, but it's going to be difficult because it's still considered an illiquid kind of investment, right? Like you put the money in, the money's working. Now, there are opportunities out there that are leveraging tokenization using NFTs and that side of it. And because they're using that, technically, those tokens that you set up that represent the shares of the fund could be traded on a secondary market. Now, will someone buy them? hopefully,
Yeah.
but just transferring interest, it gets a little difficult, but we do have transfer agents, and it is possible, and it is easier too because there's no accreditation standard. It's not like if you were in a 506c and one of your accredited investors is like, I got to get out of this, something happened and I need this money back. And you're like, oh crap, now I need to find another accredited investor who wants to take this on. Like, ooh. So that there's a big distinction there.
Awesome. So, where are you finding the deals exactly? I know you'd mentioned, kind of co-sponsors from folks in the community. So like, what does that look like exactly?
Yeah. So it's really cool. So beyond, ADPI started as an education company, and, our mission was the initial mission, vision really was to teach folks how to purchase smartly. So the military, active duty military, teach them how to purchase a home at each PCS and turn that into a rental. And then when they're done, after 20 years of service, they can retire, have their retirement pay, and have all the cash flow from these rentals and not have to go and get that government drone job for another 20 years, which if you're not in the government, it's like, that's what people do. They'll work for 20 years, retire, then they'll work as a government civilian for another 20 years and get double retirement. I don't know why. It's so monotonous, but different strokes for different folks. So that was the initial kind of vision. And we still do that. About 2-ish years in, 2.5 years in, Tim Kelly and Adam LaBar came on board, and they set up the Multifamily Academy. And, they took their experience in multifamily, and Eric Upchurch as well. And they started putting this kind of, the 20% of our community who's like, hey, I'm kind of into the syndication commercial thing. Like, how do I be a syndicator? And we started training these folks. And, after 2.5, 3 years of training folks, you have kind of the cream rise to the top, right? And we have some really, really rock star syndicators and sponsors who came through our program and are now closing 100, 200, 300 unit deals. And they're looking, obviously for funding. And we provided them first with the opportunity to work with ADPI Capital, and they're over the moon because it's the same exact people that they were trying to raise from, because they're all military. So, so having that, we kind of call it like the ADPI ecosystem. And again, it goes back to my personal desire to be the best middleman I could be. In this scenario, what we're doing is we're taking, we have this community of 55,000 military real estate investors, 80% of which are in the single family space. And we're saying, hey, here's a solution. Here's a pathway for you to get multifamily exposure and diversification. And there's very low barriers to entry, like we talked about already. And oh, by the way, our primary sponsors are people that were just like you. And they took it a step further, and now they're doing this multifamily stuff. So you have that military to military to military. And when you have that, it helps build the trust in the community. So we have about 5 or 6 sponsors right now. And we actually call them MMA heroes, so Military Multifamily Academy heroes. So they're our heroes, right? These folks are great because they're not only are they crushing it. Some of them have gotten out of the military and they're doing this full time. Some are still in, but they're also, they're teaching other students in the classes. They're the ones showing them the ropes now. And it's just really exciting to kind of nurture that community and that responsibility. But they're finding deals from, your multifamily to your RV parks, to your mobile home parks, to your self-storage, to luxury short-term rentals. And obviously we've trained them on the markets to look at, and they are using our underwriting tools. So for them to pretty much submit a package to ADPI Capital, they have to go through this kind of system, right? And they submit all the documents, all the due diligence, all the underwriting, the whole story behind the deal, all this criteria, if you will. That goes right to Adam LaBar. He reviews it. We rack and stack them. We rank them. And then we decide based on how much capital we have in the fund and how much we want to put into the deal. The investment committee comes together and says, hey, yeah, let's do this deal. And that's how it works. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That is a pretty cool twist. That's not a story we hear every day on the show. So love what you guys are doing over there. I've loved to watch y'all evolve and grow over the years. Like I said, I've since I started, I met Eric like one of the first conferences I ever went to. So I've been following you guys for a while, and I'm always impressed with how y'all are innovating. So
yeah, I appreciate that, man. Yeah, Eric's been just incredible. Right now, actually, he's on a 9-day hike. I think it's day 8 of 9 right now, and he's been doing. Shout out to Eric Upchurch and what he's done. He's raised almost $190,000 for Veterans Community Project, and that's going to build 6 or 7 tiny homes for homeless veterans, take them off the street, pay for an entire year of shelter, food, job placement, like the whole thing, therapy, everything they need. And in Veteran Community Project, their new St. Louis based community, really, because that's what they are. And they're an outstanding organization. And Eric has been 100% dedicated to them. And he and I think it's like 6 or 7 other real estate investors they decided to go on this hike up the Pacific Crest Trail, I think it is, out in California. And it's just like, yeah, it's crazy. It's incredible. So super proud of him.
Awesome. So for the sake of time, I want to hop to our radio round just to ask 3 quick questions to let our listeners get to know you. And I did not give you a heads up, so I apologize for.
Hey, man, it's all right.
So the first question is, well, I like to give people a heads up so they can think about it, but sometimes I forget. The first question is, what's your favorite book?
Yeah. I mean, I try to read a lot, and every time I start a new book, it's like, this is my favorite book.
Sure.
I would say the one that has, obviously besides like the Rich Dad Poor Dad thing, sure. The one I'm reading now is great, and it's called Measure What Matters. And it's all about objectives and key results and building your systems in place so that everyone has transparent goals. It's similar to like Traction, if you've read that book.
Sure.
A different system, but another one
I'm reading right now that I'm just in love with is Building a Story Brand. Have you read that?
No.
Oh my God, check it out. It is
Building a Story Brand. I'm gonna write that down.
It's gonna change your life, or you change your business for sure.
Yeah.
I ordered a copy for everybody in the organization. That's only halfway through.
Now you must read this. This is your book. I want a book report on my desk in a week.
Exactly.
I'll tell you though, another one that has actually, because since I've been in DC, I also started short-term rentals, and I launched a business here, and it's been going wonderfully. But the thing that really helped me on the accounting side was Profit First. I freaking love that book.
Really?
Yeah, it's all about. If you've never heard of it, it's all about how to pretty much set up your banking and stuff.
I've heard of it. I just haven't been sold on reading it yet. But you're pushing it hard.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, because I've had that problem. I've started a lot of businesses, and they have that problem of like of paying yourself. Which sounds silly for listeners who like may not have their own business, but like you're always trying to scale and grow and scale and grow. Mm-hmm. But if you do it wrong, you end up having this like big hairy job that is like constantly just like ruining your life. And then you try to like pull money out of it, and you're like, oh, I can't because my expenses are through the roof for some unknown reason. So that really helped me focus and run a very, very lean, low overhead business that, it's an arbitrage business, and it operates on.
So you're not buying that. You're not buying the buildings.
No, I'm renting them, and then I'm subleasing them. But I mean, it's 2 units outside of DC, and we're doing, I don't know, 10 to 12 grand a month in profit. Oh. And I'm like, all right, this will work. You know what I mean? Like, so, but I wouldn't be able to do that if I started this initially. I was like, I'm going to scale to like 25 of these. And then, reading that book, I was like, no, I think I can just do like 2 to 6, and that'll be good enough if you run it the right way. So,
sure. Yeah. Cool. So the next one is, what's your favorite quote?
Ooh, what's my favorite quote? Oh man.
That's the one I like to give people a heads up on.
Yeah. So I recently, and this is going to sound a little bit morbid, a little bit depressing, but I found it very inspirational as well. I was, one of the great things about living in DC, and we live right on the National Mall effectively, is to be able to walk to all the museums and just, kind of, I don't know, just get out and get some of that culture and that history. But I was walking through the Hirshhorn Museum of Modern Art. If your listeners have never been to the National Mall, it's one of the maybe not so popular museums, but oh my God, it's incredible. So go to it. It's free, Smithsonian, it's fine. But there was a quote in there in one of the pieces, and it said, they say you die 3 times. The first, when your heart stops. The second, when they bury you. And the third, when the last person says your name. And I was like, that hit me hard. And I don't know, I can't remember who said it, but that hit me so hard because I was like, that literally the next day I went back to my goals and started thinking more about my legacy and all of this stuff, because it's absolutely right. You know, the last time someone says your name, you're done. That's it. So what are you going to stand for? And it kind of helped me put things in perspective. But like I said, maybe not the most exciting quote.
What's your favorite thing to do when you're not working?
Man, I like playing sports. So I'm in a bunch of kind of leagues around the city here. I actually have softball tonight if it doesn't get rained out, but I play pickleball, which is like the kind of like fastest growing sport in the US right now. It's kind of interesting. It's like tennis and ping pong. I try to play a lot of golf and just get out. And then of course I have motorcycles, that I enjoy, breaking the speed limit laws on. But safety first, right? You got to wear the gear. So yeah, I like to ride. I think I might ride up to Pennsylvania to see my father for Father's Day this weekend. And, that'll be a beautiful ride. So I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Kevin, how can our listeners find out more about you, get in touch with you?
Yeah. So to get in touch, I think the best way, there's 2 ways really. One, just check out adpicapital.com, adpicapital.com. You'll get any information about me, about everything what we're doing with the fund in there. The other way, if you, if you're at the gym right now and you're listening, or you're out for a walking the dog, you can just take out your phone and text DEAL, DEAL to 33777. And that's going to get you all the information. It's going to get you the link that you need, and you'll get on our mailing list super quick. And then you'll start getting emails and of course, information on what's going on with the fund. So those 2 ways, texting DEAL 33777, or just checking out the website.
Awesome. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. I always appreciate meeting and chatting with somebody from your group, and I loved all the information you shared on reggae. So I'm sure our listeners will love that content. Really enjoyed chatting with you, and look forward to keeping up with you on your journey.
Appreciate it, Sterling. Thanks, man.
Thanks for tuning in to the Rent Roll Radio Show, brought to you by Crestworth Capital. We hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, please hit the subscribe button and leave us a rating and review. You can also visit us at crestworthcapital.com or rentrollradio.com, or follow us on Facebook at Rent Roll Radio or at Crestworth Capital. If you would like to reach us, feel free to shoot us an email at info@rentrollradio.com or sterling@crestworthcapital.com. We hope you come back next week to join us on some more of our journey. Until then, happy investing.